Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Carrie Williams. We are so excited to have a wonderful session this evening about talking to our children about our breast cancer diagnosis. We have Annie Gunning with us this evening, and she has 22 years of experience in child life services. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, Annie.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you all for joining us. Carrie, I wanted to just kind of expand a little bit on that I have been in child life for 22 years. My background typically includes just working in a hospital setting. That's where most child life specialists are found. So I've worked anywhere from the neonatal intensive care unit to hematology oncology to the pediatric emergency department. So I've really worked over these past 22 years in a broad range of services within the hospital. Most recently, I started a private practice in child life services because I feel like there's a gap in services in the community, and that can be met by supporting children and families with child life interventions to minimize the stress and anxiety that kids have and eliminate those long-term effects of stress and anxiety outside of the hospital walls. I've also recently had the privilege of working with Kindermourn, which I don't know if anyone has heard of Kindermourn or you're familiar with that, but that is a grief organization here in Charlotte. So I have been working as a facilitator with their school outreach program. So they do grief support services in the CMS and Fort Mill school districts. So I have been able to support those kids in the schools as a facilitator doing some grief groups during their school day. So that's been a real, nice opportunity for me to be able to work with those kids. So that's what has led me here now to, just share information again out in the community where I think it's needed beyond the hospital walls. Okay. And if you want me to go ahead and just get started and kind of talk a little bit about what child life is, I can go ahead and just jump right in. I'm going to share my screen. And I also wanted to share, I would love for this, I am very laid back and casual. So please just jump in if you have questions or if there's anything specific that you want to know. I would love for this to be a conversation too, because I want this to be helpful for you all. So child life services. This is the formal definition of what child life services from the Association of Child Life Professionals, which is our governing certifying committee. But I often have an elevator speech because whenever someone says, they know that I work in a hospital, they assume I'm a nurse. So I have my elevator speech of, as a child life specialist, my job is to prepare children for procedures, surgeries, tests, educate on new diagnosis, provide grief and bereavement support, and help develop coping plans to deal with all those situations. We do this in a developmentally appropriate way and using therapeutic play. We do creative expression, we do medical play. So it's all really involves play. So our job is to empower children and strengthen their ability to cope with these stressful and challenging experiences that typically do relate to healthcare experiences. And as child life specialists, one of the things we do is we help and we guide families on how to talk with their kids. We understand that it's difficult to start these conversations with your kids, to find the right words to use, because you don't want to, increase their stress and anxiety. As parents, what we want to do is we want to protect them from anything that's going to be stressful, that's going to make them anxious or sad. So that's always our main goal, is to protect our kids. So we are here as guides to help navigate these conversations. Parents know their children best. They are the experts on their children. So again, just think of us as guides to help your family during these conversations. So the first thing we want to talk about is, why should we talk to our kids about cancer? Well, why is it important? And I'm going to move my screen, just bear with me for a second. One of the main reasons that we want to talk to our kids about cancer or any diagnosis, is because we want to clear up misconceptions and help them understand what they're experiencing. So kids know when things are happening. They know if they see that mom is going to the doctor more, mom and dad are both going more, or they notice that there's lots of phone calls or phone calls behind closed doors or whispering, or maybe people seem a little bit more sad or people are coming over to visit. Kids notice this stuff, even if we're trying to shield them from it. So when they don't know why it's happening, they're going to start making things up on their own of why it's happening. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Do they keep leaving? They're just going to make up anything because of their magical thinking to help make sense to them. So these made up thoughts that they have are often more scary and confusing than the truth. So yes, cancer is scary, but giving them the correct and accurate information, that's going to actually help decrease that anxiety and fear and clear up those misconceptions. So that's one of the reasons we want to be sure we talk to them about what is happening. It also helps keep the lines of communication open. You're their trusting adult in their family. And by providing this honest information with them, you're just increasing that and building that trusting relationship. As opposed to if they think you're keeping secrets or you're not telling them the truth, you're telling them honestly what is happening. And that just builds that trust and strengthens that relationship, because then they know that they are coming to you for the information. And ultimately, that's what we want our kids to always do. We want our kids to get information from us, not from wherever else, they might hear it, or other people or playground or whatever. We always want them to come to us. And then one of the last things I like to mention is we want to be the ones in control of when and how they hear this information. So if we get to choose where they hear it and how they hear it and how we explain it to them, then we're in control of this for them, of how they get the information, as opposed to if you're out at an activity and you have a parent or a friend come up and talk to you and start asking you questions that maybe you weren't ready to talk about in front of the child. It's that unpredictable encounter. And now you have someone asking you things that you weren't ready to discuss in front of them. So by talking to them about it first, you've already had that discussion with them and they are already aware of what is happening. Okay. And so our next thing we want to talk about and kind of go into, and I will go into more details about how we do this. So just kind of bear with me for this first part of what do we say to kids? Let me move my screen again. I apologize. What do we say to kids? We just want to make sure we're honest, we keep it simple, and we watch and listen to their cues. That's the main thing always in any conversation. And these conversations, when I keep saying conversation, it's really just opening the door to a dialogue. This isn't a one-time thing that you're going to sit down and talk to about. I hope this is just the start of a conversation with your children. So for the younger kids, you can be as simple as, and when I say younger, I'm really thinking like preschool to probably early elementary school, like kindergarten first, maybe even second grade, just depending on, your kids' developmental level and what they're understanding. But that you can say something as simple as there's a spot of sickness in my body and it's called cancer. You can't see it, but the doctors can see it when they do tests, and they're going to give me special medicine to help my body. So that's simple, and we can go into more details about that conversation. But what you are doing is you're giving them words now that they know of what cancer means. So that way, when they hear cancer in your home, they know you're talking about the spot of sickness that you have. They know when you go to the hospital to get cancer, to get medicine, to treat your cancer, it's the spot of sickness in your body. So, and then for older kids, you can go into more details about the cells of your body, how cells divide. Our body is made up of cells. Everything living has cells, and our cells are very good at how they divide and they multiply as they need to, and they die off, and our body is very good at knowing how to make new cells. But with cancer cells, those cells divide and multiply rapidly, and they're not dying off. So you can go into a little bit more detail about cell division and how those cancer cells don't really know what they're doing. And when all those cancer cells just keep dividing and multiplying and making a big group together, that's called a tumor. And tumors can also destroy normal cells and damage the healthy tissue as well. And if you want to, if you need to go into a little bit more with the older kids, you can also share that cancer cells can travel around to different parts of the body and they can make new tumors, and this is called metastasis. So if that's something you need to share with your children, that's a way that you can do that, because cancer cells can move to different parts of the body and then they can damage that tissue. And we'll go into a little bit more details about these conversations, but I just wanted to try and share a little bit of wording about how you can actually describe the word cancer. Next, we want to go into and talk a little bit about that conversation and what we're going to say, especially for like the adults, just so you're aware. Let's start with you and how you want to present or what you want to say. We want to just be aware of your emotions before talking with your kids. Make sure you're calm. It's not rushed. You're not in a time of day when you know you're going to have to hurry up and leave and go do an activity because you don't know how long it's going to take. And you can plan on with younger kids, this is going to be a brief conversation, and it really is going to be more of, again, younger kids being the preschool, younger school age kids. You're really just going to be infusing little bits of information while you're playing. You could be playing a board game. You could be playing, I always say characters, like the little action figure things. That's what my son always called characters. So you might just be infusing little bits of information while you're playing, but you can still pick a time when it's quiet and calm and it's just you together. Have a plan in your head of how that conversation is going to go, but also know that that it can change, and that's okay. I always have a plan in my head of how I want this conversation to go when I'm doing education with families. When I'm talking about diagnosis, it usually changes, but I just want to have something in my mind. It's okay to cry and show your feelings. A lot of parents, they don't like to cry in front of their kids. It's hard when kids see their parents upset and cry, but then it also shows them that it's normal. It's a normal display of emotions, and it's okay if you're feeling sad. Excuse me. When the only time I would say that if you're crying and crying so much to where then your child is comforting you and you're turning into the caregiver, then it's time probably to take a break, because we don't want the child to turn into the caregiver role. So it is okay to be sad. This is hard. And we want to show them that we normalize it for them, that it's okay to cry. But then it might be a good idea to have another adult take over that part of the conversation if you need to leave and take a break. And I do think it's a great idea to tag team the conversation whenever you sit down to talk about it. So whether or not you're having a best friend in the room, a partner or a spouse or a grandparent, someone else in the room with you to be another support for the child or your children, and also to help you, because then if you do need to step out, you have that other person there that is there to continue the conversation and support the child and support you. Take time and take a break. At any point, if you're feeling overwhelmed by, if you know you have a question asker in your family and they ask questions and questions and you don't know what to say, just know your stopping point, and it's okay to take a break and say, you know what? Let's all go take a break for 10 minutes and let's come back. We can go read, you can go jump outside, whatever it is that everybody needs to do, and then come back and you can have the conversation again. Or we can wait and let's do it tomorrow. Like, you might just need a break. That's all okay. And then I always like to end conversations anytime I'm preparing kids for anything is, what else do you want to know? It's an open-ended conversation, an open-ended question. Not like, do you understand that? Yes, no. We want to give them something open. What else do you want to know? What else do you feel like you need to know? So when we're talking to the kids and we have we are paying attention to their responses, because this is also going to help guide our conversation. If they are crying, that's okay. Of course they would cry. This is sad. This is big. This is hard. We just validate their feelings and we acknowledge those feelings and we give them a hug. You can pull them into your lap if they're little and let them know that all feelings are okay. It is okay to feel mad and sad and angry and confused. All of those feelings are okay. When we talk about different feelings and emotions, we do want to make sure, if we talk about feeling angry, of course, feeling angry is okay. But what's not okay is hurting like if you're angry and you're hurting someone else, you can't hurt yourself or someone else or something in the room, or like destroying property. That's not okay. But what we want to do is, while we still want to acknowledge the feelings and the emotions that the kids are having, we want to give them something else to modify that behavior. So we might say that if they're showing a lot of anger, go outside and throw ice cubes on the ground, because ice cubes are going to melt. It's not going to do anything, but it's still something physical that kids can do to kind of get some emotion out. You can also write things on the bottom of your shoes, things that make you mad, maybe things about cancer that make you mad, and then you can go stomping around. I think you could even do like, I like stomping around on like bubble wrap because it's noisier, things like that. Punching mattresses and pillows. So that way we're still giving them something to do with that behavior, but it's not destructive in any way, and we're still letting them have the emotions as well. If kids respond by asking lots of questions, you always answer as honestly as you can. Simple, answers. With older kids, you can be more specific. And if they ask something and you don't know, just, I don't know that. But you know what? Next time we go to the doctor, we can ask and we can find out the answer to that. I always like to give families, when they come in, especially for a new diagnosis, a notebook, because of course you always think of things to ask as soon as someone like the healthcare team leaves the room. That's when you think of everything you should have asked. So having a notebook maybe in your house where the kids can write down something that they want to say, or question that they want to ask, or even you could put in your house. I feel like the kitchen is a very common place and the busiest place in the house. So maybe a large piece of paper behind a door, so it's a little bit more discreet, or inside of a cabinet, and they can just go and write questions that they have in there as they think of them, or questions they have for you, and then to address those questions. So just somewhere where they can go and ask questions as they think of it, if somebody isn't around. And everybody knows, like, some kids are question askers, information seekers, and they want to know everything. The playful response. So especially with younger kids, you might tell them all this information and it's really hard and confusing, and they just run off and play. That is completely normal, because they're processing this information and they are going to process it through their play. But be ready for them to come back again a little bit later, or tomorrow, or following, later in the week, and ask questions about what you said. You might even hear them infusing that into their play about something about the hospital or getting medicine or the doctor. But that's just them processing their information. When you tell them something, go off and play. They really can only handle so much information at one time. A quiet response. Some kids might not have a lot to say, or might not say anything. And again, it's their processing thing. This too is a normal response. You've just given them a lot of big and hard information, so they just want to process this. And especially common with teens. They might go up in their room and sit quietly. They might call a friend or text a friend. With teens, their main support system are their friends. So that's who they're going to rely on, and that's okay. That's what we would developmentally, that's what we expect them to do, is rely on their teen. As long as they have peers for support, that's okay. They might also just want to go and express their feelings by themselves. Like maybe they're going to go take a shower, listen to music, and maybe they're going to cry in there on their own. And that's okay too. I think normalizing these things for them helps them as well. The only thing I would say to maybe be aware of for a quiet response is, like I said, you all know your children best. You know how your kids may respond. So if kids are quiet and need to leave the room, but if they're a little bit more quiet or withdrawn than maybe what you would have expected, I would alter the conversation a little bit, maybe pull back on the amount of information given and shorten that conversation, because I think it could be a little bit, it's probably overwhelming for them and they're just not able to handle that much. So there's a difference between a quiet response and then a withdrawn response. And I think you get that feeling from your own kid and you know what that would be. Then other cues, if your child is changing that conversation and just consistently not engaged and wants to go off and play and leave the room, that too is a normal response. So these are all normal. That is okay too. Again, that is a sign that it's just too much information. So they probably heard some of what you said and you're just going to follow up again later, or they're going to come back to you later with questions. Again, this is just a conversation to get dialogue started. This is not just a one-time thing. So one thing that I want to make sure we also discuss and include that is very important is the support systems. You know, kids automatically, when you talk to them about a diagnosis or how something is happening to a family member, they're egocentric and they're going to think, how is this affecting me? How am I going to be affected? Again, that's a normal developmental response. Pretty much from preschool, I feel like, to teenagers. Teenagers think that too. They kind of go through it up and down at different stages of their development. So identifying their support system and who those people are to them, but also notifying teachers or counselors at school that this is going on in your family, so that those people, maybe even the school nurse, so that they're aware and can just watch for any behavior or academic changes. Schedule and routine changes. There's going to be changes in the routine at home and the schedule at home. We expect that. Keeping everything as normal as possible is, best for kids because they thrive and crave on routine. Like that's how they flourish, is from a routine. I think everybody enjoys the summer and then everybody's like, okay, we're ready for the school year to start to get back in our routine and get kids going again. And that's because kids do well with routine. So one thing just that I like to mention is when pointing out to kids that, yes, there will be changes. I have to go to the doctor. I'm going to need to rest and sleep, or, I can't go to all the activities. Well, that's different. You still get to go to dance on Tuesdays, but grandma's going to take you instead of me. So you still get to do things that you need to do, or so-and-so is picking you up from practice, or when you get home from school, I won't be there because I'm going to be at the hospital, but, Aunt so-and-so will be there and she's going to take you to your practice. So that way you're just letting them know that things are changing, but things are also still the same. And by doing that, you are helping them cope with these changes that are happening. You're giving them those skills to just to develop those coping skills. Talking just a little bit about treatment plans, and then we'll be finished. Surgery, preparing kids for everything. That's obviously one of the basis of what I do as a child life specialist, is preparing them. We always want to prepare kids and think of their five senses. How are they experiencing this? What are they going to see? What are they going to hear? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to, what are they going to taste if they're the one taking medicine? So for surgery for them, we want to just prepare them for their changes. And you could say something like, the doctor's going to do surgery. Surgery is when the doctor removes the cancer from my body. When I get home, I'll have a bandage on my body and I will be sore. So instead of a big bear hug, we can do kisses instead, or, a side hug, or whatever is going to work for you, and I'll still be able to read you a story. So just giving them, so they know ahead of time of how that's going to look and be different for them. But again, how it can still be the same. You're still mom, but I just, it's just going to look a little bit different. I won't look quite the same. Preparation for a port. If anyone is, if you're getting a port, I had a friend who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I was going through all of this with her, and she's like, can you get me a port, please? Like, I need to show my kids and my husband, they just don't understand what it is. So I do have a website at the end that I can give you. That's a great resource, but you can describe it as a small object with a little straw that goes under my skin and goes into my vein. And that's how I'm going to get my medicine and have my blood checked. And, most of them are up at the chest. So, and you might see it poke out from my skin, but it doesn't hurt, but that's where I'm going to get my medicine. Just again, so that's something they'll see and they'll probably be curious and want to feel it. Chemotherapy. Chemo, that's the special medicine used to treat cancer, whether that's a pill or a liquid, or if it's going through your port. How is this going to affect them? Is it you're going every day for a week. Is it a week on, a week off? So I'm going to be going and they're going to be giving medicine in my port, and I'm going to go Monday through Friday, just kind of preparing them for what that looks like for them and their schedule, and then how you are going to feel after that. So when I get home, I'm going to come home and I'm going to need to rest for a while, or I might not feel good. So this is what I'm going to do. And if it's a pill or a liquid that you take at home, then obviously you can skip some of those things. Like that's not going to affect them as much as you being gone from the house or being gone and not being there to do certain things with them. Radiation is a special kind of X-ray used to get rid of cancer cells. And again, just preparing them for how that's affecting them. And is it every day for, a month, or how long, how does that look for them? Or you can say like it's a special, for little kids, a special laser. The laser is going to go in and get the cancer cells. And then immunotherapy, if anyone does immunotherapy, that's a special treatment to help my body's fighter cells fight the cancer. So that's what my immune system is. And then focusing a little bit on the side effects. So the cancer cells the chemo does a really good job of fighting all of the cancer cells. But sometimes the chemo gets confused and doesn't really know the difference between fighting the cancer cells and fighting my healthy cells. So it fights those two. And when that happens, people temporarily lose their hair, or might get stomach aches, or might get sores in my mouth, or might not feel like eating, or get tired. So you can explain it as that's why you have some of those side effects, is because of how the chemo is fighting the good cells too, because it just doesn't quite know the difference. And then I always like to point out too, infections, because our immune systems are down. We need to make sure we're washing our hands a lot. So when you come in from outside, it's really good. You got to wash your hands so we all stay healthy. And as a reminder for, the teenagers too, my immune system isn't so strong right now. So going out with a bunch of friends, and if they're sick, that's not a great choice, and that's okay. That's okay to say that. That was a lot of information really fast. So I just want to finish up here by giving you guys a few resources. I have tons, but I don't want to overwhelm you with too many resources. So if anybody has anything specific that they're really wanting to talk about with their children or with their child, or that you want, please reach out to me or let Carrie know. And I am happy to give you anything that you feel like you're looking for. Even if you don't know specifically what that is, if you have something that you're dealing with or going through, I'm happy to find it because I know it's out there. So on the right side are just books for different age groups. On the left side, Invisible String. If nobody has read Invisible String, it is a fantastic book that just helps kids realize that you can still be connected with someone, even if you're not physically there. And Hey Warrior is my new favorite book that talks about children's anxiety and how kids can deal with their anxiety. And she has another one too called Hey Awesome, which I don't have, but Hey Warrior, I've read a bunch and it's wonderful. And then I always like to share the kidshealth.org website, because I think it's a very reputable and informative website, because they give information for kids, for teens, healthcare professionals, and parents. So if there's something you're looking to explain to your child, you can click under children. They have injuries, illness, they have nutrition, they have everything. And it's just a great website that I give a lot to my teenagers when they're diagnosed, but to parents too. And then I put my website on the bottom. If I have some additional resources on there. So if you need anything else, you can look on my website and you might find some additional resources on there.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Annie. This was fabulous. I made a lot of notes, and, I think the points that you made about kids are egocentric, that they're going to focus on how is this going to impact me. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to checking out some of these books too. Yes. So empowerthroughplay.com. Thank you so much for your time today, absolutely. Annie. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And again, if anybody needs any additional resources, please reach out to Carrie or let me know.